By now, you know that Justin Trudeau has announced his intention to resign, but you might not know just how precarious of a position it leaves Canada in. We have no one to negotiate with Donald Trump ahead of the looming threat of tariffs. And now, there's stunning revelations about the threat of foreign interference, as well as the fact that people who aren't Canadian citizens can vote for the next Liberal leader and the next Prime Minister of Canada. Joining me today to discuss is Brian Lilley of the Toronto Sun. I'm Rachel Parker. Welcome back to The Rachel Parker Show. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining the show again today. I want to start by asking you right off the hop, you've been pretty vocal online that you are not happy with the announcement that Justin Trudeau made on Monday morning because of the situation that it puts Canada in as we seek to negotiate with these tariffs and Donald Trump. Can you explain that a bit further?
Well, we're in the worst possible position. We have a lame duck prime minister who is going to be the one negotiating with Donald Trump, who is going to be inaugurated in less than 2 weeks now. Trump has said, starting day one, 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods unless we do something about our border. Well, what can we do about our border? Danielle Smith in Alberta has come up with some ideas. Francois Legault in Quebec has some ideas. Even Wab Canoe in Manitoba has sent conservation officers down to patrol, I think, down around Emerson. But the border is a federal responsibility, and we do not have a functioning government at the moment. Now, in the fall economic statement, they promised $1.3 billion in new funding over 5 years for border measures. Guess what? That money has not been voted on. That appropriation has not gone through Parliament. Can they even spend it? Is Trump going to take Trudeau seriously? He's announced he's leaving. So who does Trump negotiate with? Who does his team negotiate with? The finance minister, current finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc, who's also in charge of border issues, he's looking at a leadership run. Half of Trudeau's cabinet is going to look at a leadership run. We will not have an effective functioning government for the next 6 months as we deal with a very real threat to our economy. What we needed was an election, but we also needed that a little while ago so that there would be someone in Ottawa with a mandate to actually negotiate with Trump, to talk to the incoming U.S. president with some authority.
So you think rather than announcing his intention to resign and proroguing Parliament, Trudeau simply should have asked the Governor General for an election on Monday?
Absolutely, and we could have gotten that over with quickly. We would have a new government in place by early March. Now, my calculations, and you can hear me out on this, there's even a nightmare scenario where Justin Trudeau still runs in the next election. But I'm thinking the earliest we could have a functioning government is one elected by May, and then, in place, sworn in, and everything by early June. That's not a good scenario. And think about this. We don't know when the Liberals are going to have their leadership race. I think that they're going to try and have the leadership race before the House comes back on March 24th. Was speaking with my friend and colleague Warren Kinsella, who has a bit of experience in running Liberal leadership races and election campaigns. And he says there's no way that the party can actually do that. Their riding associations across the country have fallen apart because of the way the party runs now, this cult of personality around Trudeau. There's no infrastructure to run a leadership race anymore. And so he thinks it'll be past March 24th before they pick a leader. Let's say that happens. The government comes back on March 24th because they have to pass a spending bill. Government runs out of money on March 31st. So there's going to be a confidence vote on the spending bill. The Conservatives will have an opposition day. Well, that will be a motion of non-confidence, and they don't need to vote on the speech from the throne. That's optional, but if they do, that's confidence vote. So 2, possibly 3 confidence votes in that first week they come back. If they come back with Justin Trudeau as their leader, there's no way that anybody's making a deal with them. The NDP is not going to cut a deal. The Bloc has already said they're voting the government down. So Justin Trudeau's still prime minister, and we head into an election because they can't get their shit together, as Pierre Poilievre said to Jordan Peterson recently.
Just quickly going back to the tariffs, with Canada really lacking a lead negotiator on this front now, is there any hope of Canada avoiding these tariffs when Trump's inauguration becomes official on January 20th?
Uh, I, unless Trump is in a good mood, unless he suddenly feels like, oh, well, let's be nice to Canada, I don't see it. I don't think that we've put enough in the window so far in terms of being able to show that we're serious on this. There have been some overtures about what, as I said, provinces will do, and a little bit about what the feds will do, but all that is up in the air right now. And we know that Trump likes to find weakness and seek out weakness. And right now we are very weak because, as Danielle Smith put it, of Trudeau's incredibly selfish actions.
So you've raised a lot of the concerns over Justin Trudeau proroguing Parliament. I know most Canadians were pretty unhappy with the announcement that he made on Monday. I think people were expecting a resignation and said we got an intent to resign plus the prorogation. Some people that I've spoken to have also said there is a positive side to this because there was so much harmful legislation that was before the House that is now dead in the water that will have to be reintroduced, including the capital gains tax. Is there a positive thing?
No, the capital gains tax changes are going through. Um, it would make sense that because of prorogation, they wouldn't go through. But I checked with CRA and I said, my understanding is you're still going to go forward with this. And they sent a long, detailed explanation. And I can understand their logic behind it, but I still fundamentally disagree with it. But let me back up. So the capital gains changes were announced in the budget, I believe. Then they were supposed to take effect June 25th. They didn't table their Ways and Means motion until September 23rd. Then Parliament was seized with the Green Slush Fund scandal and the question of privilege, so no government business was done until the tabling of the fall economic statement. So the Ways and Means motion has never been voted on. In my view, that means that it's not passed, it's not legal, and now that the House is prorogued, it dies. CRA says that their longstanding tradition is that they act as if the tax changes are in effect as soon as the Ways and Means motion is tabled, and that has been going on for, across governments of all stripes, and for years, year upon year. So they are still going to act as if that one is going forward. An awful lot of people are going to be upset about that, but I just wanted to get that out there. That's still going forward. Online harms bill, that's done.
So generally seems like we're in a very bad state in Canada. Sure, there's some legislation that Canadians were not pleased about that certainly Conservatives weren't happy about that will die, but generally seems like we're not in a good scenario. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Liberal leadership race. Do you have any idea currently who's going to be putting their names forward in that race?
I can tell you that Chrystia Freeland has been getting the backing of some old Liberal MPs and party stalwarts from the Chrétien Martin era. Christy Clark has hired Don Guy, a Toronto-based strategist and campaigner who's had success at both federal and provincial levels over the years. Well-connected guy within the Liberal Party. She held a conference call on Monday night with 100 different Liberal organizers across the country. So that's pretty impressive. Her support base would be in Western Canada rather than in Toronto, but obviously pulling some from Ontario. Now, when I say Western Canada, of course, the Liberal Party is not a big going concern where you are in Alberta, but British Columbia was key to Justin Trudeau's victories. And it is always key to the Liberal Party in trying to form a majority government. So Clark would be a viable candidate there. We know that Mark Carney is pausing to think about it, but now he's having people post photos of him saying, "Oh, look, he's hanging out with Ghislaine Maxwell." You'll have to explain that. or explain that it's not her. I have no idea, but I'm seeing him be bombarded with that. Why Mark Carney would give up the life he has, earning megabucks to pontificate about the need for green climate initiatives in order to get into the muck of political mud wrangling. I have no clue. But you're going to have a bunch of also rans in there, Anita and lovely lady it seems, but she doesn't have the political clout or the political chops to be able to pull off a leadership race. So there's going to be a lot of also rans, and we'll have to wait and see what the voting rules even are. I mean, we know the crazy part of the voting rules. We know that a 14-year-old Chinese exchange student in Toronto can go vote, and we know that because of the foreign interference scandal. So I but we don't know when the leadership race will be, when it will start, when you have to have a membership by, things like that. Um, I just expect a lot of foreign interference. I know we're getting the Hogue Commission report at the end of this month into past foreign interference. There's going to be a whole new chapter on the Liberal leadership race. If they'll interfere with Han Dom's nomination in Don Valley in Toronto, what do you think they're going to do, or what India will do, or Russia, or Hamas supporters will do in rallying to Melanie Joly if they can help pick the next Prime Minister of Canada, leader of a G7 country?
Yeah, I want to touch on this foreign interference a little bit more because you reported this morning that a teenager who's not even a Canadian citizen can vote in the Liberal leadership race. Is this solely due to foreign interference, or does the Liberal Party need to clean up their leadership rules a little bit more and maybe have some more safeguards around them to ensure that it's actual Canadian citizens who are voting in this contest?
I think all the parties need to, and I'm now in a position that I wouldn't have been several years ago before the foreign interference revelations. I think that we need to have Elections Canada have a bit of say in how party nominations are held. Before, I would have said no. It's a private club. You don't need to get Elections Canada involved. You don't need more bureaucracy. But they've all got some pretty strange rules. I think for the Conservatives, you can vote in a a leadership race or a nomination at the age of 16, but I believe you have to be a citizen. I think you have to be a citizen in the NDP as well. Uh, excuse me. For the Liberals, you just need to be 14 years of age, 14, and ordinarily reside in the riding that you want to vote in. Well, in Don Valley, they had Chinese students, high school and college students who were bussed in to and told by the Chinese consulate who to vote for. Of course, that same sort of thing is going to happen in a national leadership race. And it's going to happen in the oddest places. And now we've got foreign students everywhere. I mean, there's going to be people who will, we've seen the protests, people saying, we don't want to, go home when our visas expire. Okay, all those students, including in far off ridings. This is how you win a leadership race, by the way. It's 100 points per riding, just like the Conservatives, and then those points are allotted. You take over one of these defunct um, uh, local riding associations, and there's 100 points up for grabs. You could just sign up 25 people. They may be the only 25 members. You're going to get all 100 points for your candidate. And all of them could be people who aren't citizens in Canada. How do we allow this to happen?
In this case, not only are they voting in a national leadership contest, but they're also voting for the next prime minister. So, how is this even legal that you can vote while not being a Canadian citizen?
Because we don't have rules around party nominations. It's considered a private organization, and it's not considered the same as a general election. I think we're seeing the problem with that now, the folly of it, and it needs to change. I think the rules should be the same as a general election. You need to be a Canadian citizen, and you need to live where you're voting. And you should be 18 years of age. We need to change this and make it that way for all the parties. If you want to contest in a federal election, then you should follow the same rules as a federal election in your nomination races.
Wow, Brian, thank you so much. There's clearly some shocking implications that I think I hadn't necessarily thought of when Trudeau announced that he was resigning in the leadership race on Monday morning. And I know for Canadians, very informative, but certainly a lot to be concerned about here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, again, that was Brian Lilley of the Toronto Sun. Certainly some very serious implications about the people that will be choosing the next Prime Minister of Canada. Now, of course, we would be remiss on a day like today if we didn't cover some of the hilarious media reactions to Trudeau's resignation, and CBC was in mourning basically all day Monday. I've been busy today. I haven't checked back, but I'm sure it's about the same. They had a number of panels. Everyone seemed very eager to praise the departing leader. And here is the NDP's former director of communications talking about what a wonderful man Justin Trudeau was.
He's done some really good things for this country. He's done some really good things for people. I will forever love dental care, and I know, I'll say the NDP pushed that, but he delivered on it, right? That is a reality. People that I love are getting dental care because, something that the Prime Minister did. So regardless of all of this thing that's happened lately and where we are at with caucus, I think people will remember him kindly. He wasn't mean-spirited. He wasn't, punching to punch. And I think that's really important in our leaders, and it's not always the case. So maybe that's what I'll say about the Prime Minister. I think folks will remember him for the kind things that he did, and he did have an impact, a positive impact.
Do you guys remember Justin Trudeau for the kind things that he did? Kind? I can think of a lot of words to describe Justin Trudeau, but kind certainly isn't one of them. The thing that comes to my head is maybe when he called us all a radical fringe minority with unacceptable views. Was that kind? That's not an example of punching down, is it? Just some food for thought for you all. I'm sure you'll have your own thoughts. Then another clip that I wanted to play for you all, I felt like this one was very interesting because I think it reveals a lot about Americans' attitudes toward Canada. One of the things that we've seen a lot in the American news is the Americans are saying, oh, Justin Trudeau left shortly after his meeting with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump caused Justin Trudeau to resign. Now, I was just talking about this with my producer, Sean. I think most of you are familiar with him from his days on the Andrew Watton Show. And, certainly Donald Trump was an extra layer and added stress to a prime minister who was already hanging by a thread. There's that correlation there is already obvious. But the conditions that caused Justin Trudeau to announce his intentions to resign on Monday morning were already there. They've been there for about a year, maybe even a year and a half now. So Justin Trudeau has long been on his way out. And sure, we can thank Donald Trump for being maybe that added layer of stress that finally, was the nail in the coffin. But those conditions that caused Trudeau to leave, that's multifaceted. That already existed. I think a lot of Americans are not really willing to look at all those reasons, probably just because, tend to be less informed on another nation. But here is a Fox Business host asking Danielle Smith if Canadians really want radical change or if we're pretty much going to want par for the course like we saw with Justin Trudeau. And take a listen to the Premier's response.
And forgive me for being a cynic. I've watched what's happened in Canada now for several years, and to me, it seems like a stretch that the Canadian people are going to choose a radically different route than the one they've been going down. Do you really believe with new leadership, Canada could turn the corner in a way that, America sort of seemed to do in this last election?
One of the things I would ask, I don't know if you had the chance to see, but our who I think is our future Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre, was just on Jordan Peterson's podcast, got 40 million views. So I think that tells you something about what he has tapped into. And I think it's it's the parallel track that we've been going on, seeing that the Americans have had enough with the wokeism, with the punitive measures, with the unaffordability. And I would say that in a few months' time, you're probably going to see Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre. And if that does happen, then our conservative province will have a partner in being able to do development. We'll have a partner in building pipelines. We'll have a partner in development. We'll have a partner in productivity growth. And we'll have a partnership, I think, that will be a really strong ally of the United States. So if the Americans can wait just a few months, I think you're going to see quite a dramatic turn in this country.
Very well said. All I have to say is that I hope she's right. Okay, everyone, that's all we have time for today on The Rachel Parker Show. It was great to get back into it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Did you know about the risk of foreign interference in the Liberal leadership race? Did you know that non-Canadian citizens can vote for the next Prime Minister of Canada? And what do you think about it all? I'll be sure to get to some of your comments next week. Have a good one. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and God bless.